Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Campaigner webinar on why it is good to experiment with email marketing. Joining us today, we have Hank Hoffmeyer. He is a client success infotainer. He's educational and informative and entertaining all at the same time. We also have Carlos Peterson. He is a client success representative extraordinaire. And then there's myself. I'm Cindy McKenna, and I'm the customer experience manager here at Campaigner. Okay, so let's look at what we're going to cover today. 1, what are experiments? We're going to discuss the core concepts of experiments. Whoops, a little ahead of myself there. 2, how can experiments help me? Let's explore the benefits of using experiments in your email marketing. 3, a closer look, an in-depth walkthrough of the top experimentation elements. And finally, we'll have our Q&A for questions. So I'm going to hand it over to Hank now. So Hank, tell us how we can experiment today.
Awesome. Thank you, Cindy, for the introduction. And more importantly, thank you for everyone joining us today to talk about experiments. For me, the term experiments reminds me of high school, where science was one of my favorite subjects. I always looked forward to the days that included experiments. For me, it was both fun and scary to see what might happen with any particular experiment. Would I use too much of one chemical, making the experiment fail? Or worse, maybe causing an explosion and having it blow up in my face? Just kidding. Or maybe it would just go as planned, or I really knew what was going to happen and I found that to be true. I've always liked to learn new things and, more importantly, how things worked. And science class in high school never disappointed. A main point of an experiment is to test a hypothesis to see if the predicted outcome is what you expected or if it became correct. With email marketing, there are times when us as marketers feel like our subject lines and content should be included in the Marketing Hall of Fame, right? And folks, if the Marketing Hall of Fame does not exist, I think we should get together and lobby to have it created, because that would be kind of cool, right? The thing is, even though we think we've crafted the perfect content, such as the best subject line ever, or our call to action button needs to be, focal point of that Marketing Hall of Fame, our audience was probably going to think differently, because people like to consume content differently. And that's where marketing experiments comes in. It helps demonstrate what content actually does resonate with our subscribers, not what we feel is our best content or the best content ever created, which shouldn't be up to us, right? Our good friend Albert stated that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. At times, this can pertain to email marketing, right? Because at least we may expect similar results. If we're doing okay and we're always getting the same results, we're still happy, right? I don't think that's acceptable at all. And dare I say that's a little crazy to think that way. And just because you've done something for years and it continues to work or does similar as far as your metrics, what makes you think that that's going to work in the future, right? Think of your most tried and true elements that you use in email and that you've ever sent. Is it worth seeing if you could do any better and raising the level of the engagement and raising the level of results with your email marketing? For all you know, you may have hit a marketing plateau or a performance plateau. The good news is you could change this by testing to reach higher levels or getting to a new plateau. How do we use email marketing to reach new plateaus? Well, what we want to do is test, and test again. That's my motto, always be testing. There's a reason why marketers experiment, because it works. People like to consume content differently. And I know I keep saying that, but we're going to hit that home all day long. With email, you need to look at your audience with a different lens than that of your own. What you have to say might be important, but how it's communicated is also important. And make sure it's being communicated in the best possible fashion. Or can it always be better? Can you always be having better results? And the answer is yes. Wouldn't you like to be able to read the minds of your subscribers and know what would resonate with them? With experiments, that is your superpower to learn just that, kind of. Let's back up for a second. What are experiments? And I'm not talking about pouring chemicals into a beaker and causing an explosion, or putting Mentos into a soda bottle and watching all the fuzz come out, and you know, having fun with that and maybe getting it in someone's face. With marketing, experiments is something that's just a little bit different. It's a multivariate test of, and I'm sorry, that went ahead. It's a multivariate test of email marketing content. By multivariate, I'm talking about different versions of a subject line, a call to action, links in your email, and other content or verbiage, such as images. You can have more than 2 versions with multivariate testing. 2 versions would be considered split A/B testing. And with experiments, you can use 2, 3, 4, 6 if you want to. Both of those work, but we're here to talk about experiments, which would be possibly using more than 2, but you can always do a split test if you need to. According to Frazee, email marketers test less than 50% of their email campaigns. And when they do experiments, they're mostly doing split A/B testing, which is 2 variants, nothing more. I once worked with a client that said, everyone should be using experiments. It's like getting free opens with every send. This client used subject line testing very often, and he found that his open rates often increased when he tested to get the right and perfect subject line. He was able to take his open rate from 15% on average to about 25 to 30%. Hopefully those experiment results will teach you that you need to be using experimentations more, because again, marketers use experimentations because they work. Let's take a look at some ingredients, so to say, that you can use in your experiments. What can we put in our beakers, right? The first thing is you can test your subject line to see which one works better. Can you use emoji in your subject line? Does that help increase opens? Personalization, longer or shorter subject line? You need to try all of those. I'm not here to tell you which one is going to work, because you should be experimenting. Then you can also test your pre-header. This is the bit of text that shows as an extension of your subject line. To me, a pre-header is like what Robin is to Batman. He's an enabler and a supporter, and he is just as effective as Batman at times. So a pre-header shows up as an extension of your subject line. You may have noticed this in Gmail, Outlook, and other email clients, where you see the subject line, today's specials are here. And then a pre-header would be not bold, it'd be next to that, and it would say free shipping on every order. Next, we have our from name, and this is something that is shown when you receive an email. What is the name? Is it your brand name? Is it your inbox? You know, where on the left-hand side, is it the brand name? Is it your personal name, the president's name of the company? Test different versions to see what resonates, and it also depends on what kind of business you're in. Then you have your from email, sales at, info at, joe at. Try different variants of the from email as well. And then also you want to be testing out your design. Different designs can resonate differently with your audience. More text, less text, images. It really depends on your audience. You need to find out what is going to hit home with them to cause those open rates and click rates to go higher. How can experiments help you? Well, number one, you can get improved engagement from your subscribers. Next, you can increase your conversion rates. In other words, if you're sending emails to people that you know are resonating with your test audience, they're going to perform more with the rest of your audience that you're sending to, the larger portion of your subscriber list. And Carlos is going to tell us more about that soon. It's multifunctional. You can test different elements of your email: subject line, call to action, your design. You can minimize subscriber attrition. By knowing what your subscribers want, less and less of those are going to unsubscribe, or worse, mark your message as spam. And we're also going to be able to increase your ROI. You're spending money on email marketing. Why not make more money back? By knowing what emails resonate with your audience, your conversion rates should go higher, and you should make more money off of email. All right, so with that, what I want to do is have you get out your smocks, your beakers, and let's get ready to experiment. Professor Carlos is up next, and what he's going to do is he's going to walk us through some cool experiment options within Campaigner. So Carlos, let's mix it up.
Thanks very much, Hank, and hello everyone. Just to make sure everyone can hear me just now, I believe I'm coming through just fine. This is Carlos of the Campaigner Client Success Team, and I'm going to show you how to make an experiment using our platform. Here we are at our dashboard, the screen you're always greeted with when you sign into Campaigner. All the familiar features above, and today we'll be focusing on experiments. All right, so this is what your experiments page will look like. All the experiments listed here in the order they were created, newest being at the top. So there are actually two ways to begin experiment. Option number one, you will select new experiment. You will actually build it from scratch. It'll take you to the campaign creation screen and basically just go through the entire process of starting from scratch. Option number two, which you might find to be more convenient, you will take a campaign you've already created. Maybe you have a template, maybe you duplicated one you've already sent. You're just going to give it an edit with the new touches, and maybe that's how you want to create it. However you want to create your email campaign, it's up to you, but both methods eventually bring you to step number 3. And this is actually where we can initiate our experiment. So if you'll just take a look at this screen right here, as you can see next to any given subject line, you'll see the experiment beaker, and that's what we will select. So let's experiment with a subject line. First step, enter your variables. Here you can try different things in an attempt to appeal more to your recipients. Just first of all, to touch on merge fields, just in case someone's not familiar or they're rather new to this, you can see in subject line B, I have a merge field. They're customization tools in your Campaigner account. A good example would be first name or birthday. This is data that you can import or collect with your sign-up forms. So you can use these merge fields in your subject lines to give them a more personal touch. You can compare a regular subject line with a more personalized subject line to see which one does better. You can also add another variable with emojis to see if this appeals more to your recipients. You can select from the drop-down we have here, or you can copy and paste from another source. It's up to you. So that's the point of experiments. You're trying different metrics to a small portion of your list to see what the best performing one is. And then next time you can experiment further with the winner to see if you can improve upon it even further. There's no such thing as too many experiments. As with all things, there's always room for improvement. And this tool is designed in such a way to get you better results on your email campaigns. So, customize. At this next stage, further customization is possible. So let's say you wanted to edit a subject line. You can double check everything and just apply edits where it's needed. The drop-down menu here will give you the ability to pick a different metric to experiment on. So as Hank was mentioning before, you can do subject, pre-header, from name, from email, and design. You can switch to a different one on the fly if you choose. So add as many variations as you need. There's no limit. Although for the sake of keeping track, or if you're just starting out with your first experiment, perhaps start with 1 or 2 or even 3. That's why we start you at default with just 3. If you have too many, you can click this red X here and it'll take away a variable. So add, take away as you see fit. Just like with any of our steps within campaign creation process, you can test it at any time. And you'll get all 3 variables or however many to your email or whatever email that you indicate all along your testing process. This brings us to the next step, which will allow you to select your contacts. You can select a specific mailing list, segment, exclusion list, combination of all or some, or just send to all contacts, completely up to you. This bar here, you can click on it, grab it, slide it up and down, change the percentage. It just makes it very convenient to select the amount of contacts that are being experimented with. By default, we'll start you off with 20. Once you have your percentage selected, these are randomly divided among the amount of variables you have in step 1. Or instead of a percentage, as you can see below, you can enter a total amount of contacts, which are also divided at random. Either or, it's up to you. If in doubt, just use the slider. It does the work for you. Less work is always good. So the idea is, the experiment runs with this small selection of contacts. Out of this, a winner is determined. The winner, being the best version, gets sent to the remainder of your segment or contacts selected. All right. Step 3. How long is it going to run for? This is completely up to you depending on your own business needs. If in doubt, we can recommend 24 hours as it gives everyone enough time to take the desired action and does not idle for too long. Speaking of desired action, it is at this stage that we determine what you would like in a winner. Do you want them to open, click at least once, click several times, or do you want them to click on a specific link, such as, the webinar invite some of you may have clicked on in order to join us here today? All right. Here's a quick glance just at the next step of the actual final step of the experiment creation process. You can either send it immediately after the experiment is complete or at a desired time in the future. You then need to decide when the winning variable is sent out. Will it be as soon as the experiment completes? Will it be at a desired time in the future? Will it let you know it's ready so that you can go and study the reporting and schedule it at your leisure? You decide. And finally, once your experiment completes, you can take a look at your reporting. And this is an example of what that looks like. You can really study all the different metrics here all at once and really get a sense for how each of them performed independently. So that's it for me. Thank you, everyone. Handing it back to Hank.
Awesome. Thank you, Carlos. That was informative, and I hope it's going to encourage people to go in, start experimenting, and seeing what they could do to improve their email marketing results. All right, so some final thoughts here. What I want to do is make sure that you know that experimenting is a good thing. Even though in science class, maybe you made some mistakes and ruined somebody's hair and fried off their eyebrows. With email marketing, experimenting is a good thing, and you want to do it more often than not because it helps with your results. And make sure that you are experimenting often with different elements. Don't get stuck with only trying subject lines or only trying your from name. Try some content. Try different call to action buttons or personalizing the call to action buttons. Mix it up a little bit because you never know what might work better or worse, right? Maybe you'll learn what not to do. We can now officially dub everybody honorary email marketing scientists. Since you went through this webinar, you know how to experiment more effectively. You're an honorary email marketing scientist. You should, by experimenting, have better performing email campaigns, using experiments and finding what performs the best. And by experimenting with various elements such as the subject line, pre-header, from name, reply email, and email design, you should hopefully keep your honorary badge and keep your results growing more and getting better open rates, click rates, and most importantly, return on investment. And with that, we wanted to keep this short and sweet because we know this is kind of a difficult topic to talk about. What we really want to do is open it up for Q&A and see what you have as far as questions or even just comments about experiments so that we can help you the best way possible to make sure you're effective with your email campaigns. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Cindy, and we're going to get started with Q&A.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Hank, and thank you, Carlos, for that. All right, let's take a look and see what kind of questions we have coming in here. Just going to give everybody a moment to get their questions going. Okay. We have a question here from Jan, and Jan asks, can you mix and match criteria? Test a subject line in one and a pre-header on the other?
I can answer that
Carl,
question.
if you want, you go, Carl.
Yeah, sure. No, you can only test one metric at a time. So basically, it's either going to be subject line or one of the other metrics. But all the more reason to do an experiment for subject line first, maybe experiment a few times on it until you're really happy with it, and then experiment further using the same version on a different metric. So I think that might be a good idea.
Great. Thanks for that, Carlos. All right, let's take a look and see here. What else do we have? I have a question from Joe. So Joe wants to know what happens when two variations have the same high results.
Interesting. I could take that one. For me, let's say we did a subject line test and they both had the same open rate for your test subjects. And for me, I consider that statistical noise, and it may have just been a fluke. What I would say is first test it again just to make sure, or something similar. Otherwise, if there's like a 2 or 3% margin, then it might be believable that it was very close. Maybe you just had two great subject lines, and you can go with the higher winner. If you're doing a manual test, obviously you have to choose it, but our system would choose the highest percentage. But you might want to go back later and say, hey, well, was that a fluke? Should I test that again? And then try that or something similar again. Otherwise, anything more than like a 2 or 3% variation would probably be believable.
Great, thanks, Hank. All right, well, we got lots of questions coming in here now. We have a question from Aaron. Aaron wants to know, is experimentation effective even with a small contact list? For example, say 2,500 subscribers.
It's funny you should ask that, Aaron, because that's actually the least amount that we recommend that you test with. Anything smaller than that, you might not get the best test results possible. But if you want to start with at least a list of 2,500, that's best practice. That's what you want to go with.
All right, great. Let's move on to the next question here. We have a question from Kyle. Does that send the winner option mean that some recipients will receive the email twice, one with the losing version and one with the winning version?
I could take that one. Thanks for your question, Kyle. So actually we have a built-in fail-safe option. It actually automatically ensures that nobody receives the same communication twice, whether they're winner or loser. So actually when you're in the process of dividing up the contacts, with that percentage slider, it'll never take one of those that were experimented with, and they'll never get the winning variation sent to them again. So there is a built-in fail-safe for that.
Great question. Thanks for that. Okay, let's take a look and see here. Carl, let's look at Carl's question. Can you select multiple lists for your experiments? Can I use exclusions and segments?
Yeah, Carl, thank you. Thanks for your question. Just to touch on that from before, you actually can use a combination of segments, mailing lists. You can send to basically exactly how you would build a regular campaign. You can use the exact same contacts that you would normally use. So yeah, exclusion lists, segments, mailing lists, all of the above. Yeah, there is no limit to that.
Great, thanks. That was a great question. All right, let's take a look and see here. Now we have a question from Mikkel. How would you go about testing design since there are only drop downs for subject lines, pre-header, etc.?
Yeah. So what you want to do is just make sure you have two versions created. And most importantly, before you even think about doing the testing, you don't want to test too much of a design. In other words, you don't want to change like 8 different elements, because what you're looking to see is, what is working. Maybe it's your buttons, different colors, right? Maybe orange versus green, and that would be your test. And what you're going to do is in the interface, you're just going to choose the 2 different emails, or if it's more than 2, you would choose those. But if we're just talking about 2, you just choose those emails. So when you go into the interface, right, Carlos, that's probably had the best way to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, there's the option that appears on the side. If you ever wanted to edit any particular of your email designs, once you have email design selected from the dropdown, you'll just see a little edit option next to each variable, so you can further design it or edit it as much as you like on the fly.
Great. All right. We have a question from Anthony now. Anthony says, I have a monthly informative newsletter that normally uses the same subject line. Should I use experiments?
Awesome question. I could take that one. I would say yes, because I mentioned early on that even though something's been working for a long time and you've been doing things the same and maybe you're getting similar, good results, you never know if they can change. I would try to change it up a little bit, not only for your reader's sake, but for the algorithms of the inbox provider like Gmail and Yahoo, to see if they would treat you any differently. Both, again, the computer and the subscribers. You might be pleasantly surprised.
Great, thanks, Hank. All right, let's go on here. We're getting a lot of questions coming in. Kristen would like to know, is there a way to experiment with pre-headers?
I could take that one. Thanks for your question, Kristen. Yeah, it's actually just one of the 5 options, so we make it very convenient. very convenient to select pre-headers, you can definitely test with that. So, maybe you want to try subject line, make sure you iron out or hash out the best subject line possible, and then you can, experiment with it further and do pre-headers. So yeah, it's just one of the drop downs. And in step 3 of your campaign creation process, you're going to see a little experiment beaker next to pre-header if you want to just start from there.
Beaker, like science class.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on here. We got Mila asking a question. How do we experiment with the best times and days of the week to send campaigns?
Best times and days of the week. We had a presentation on segmentation not too long ago, and a similar question came up. And there was all these articles years ago, if people remember, around what is the best day of the week to send, what is the best time to send, and really it depends on your audience, right? When they want to consume it. I don't think there's any sweet spots, but yeah, I think that you should test every now and then to see if early morning or late afternoon works. Now, if you're international, obviously you might want to segment off of that. And maybe do testing with the segments. But yeah, I would say try to test to see what does best. But again, if you're doing like day of the week testing, you don't want to just take one test and say that's end all be all. Friday did better than Monday, because you might run the same test a month later and get different results. What you want to do is try it a few times and see what day and time resonates. And I know I'm not directly answering the question, because again, it's like, yeah, you need to experiment to find out what might be a sweet spot. But I think the way people read emails these days on mobile devices and computers, that is a moving target. Carlos, do you agree or disagree with that, or do you have any other further advice to give on that?
I agree. So while it's not really something you can pick from the dropdown as a variable, it is by sending at different times a day along with experimenting, you are essentially experimenting with with time and day. So basically what I'm trying to say, and I'll try to say it more clearly, let's say you're testing with subject line, and then you test it at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning and you get poor results, and you want to wait until that experiment finishes to let you know when to send it. Well, then you could just run the very same experiment on a Monday morning at 9 a.m., see what results you get then, and then maybe send out the winning metric to that one. So in that sense, it's a bit more of a manual process, because it goes according to your own business needs in that case, and only you know when it's best to send to your customers. So I think in that sense, keeping it small and waiting for it to come back to you so you can schedule it out, and experimenting with time that way might be a good idea.
Great, that was a great question. All right, we have a question from Mo. Mo would like to know, how long should I wait to send the winning email? 12 hours, 24 hours, or 48 hours?
Carlos, you want to start with that one?
Sure. I mean, generally speaking, you don't want to let it sit for too long, because if it takes somebody 4 days to open one of your emails, I mean, they're sort of at that point considered a non-opener. Ideal recipients of your emails, you want them to open it within 24 hours or even 2 days max. So while we do give you the option to put it a lot longer than a day or two, generally speaking, a day or two is best practice. It gives everybody more than enough time to react and click on your email.
Great. Okay, let's move on here. Carrie would like to know, since my newsletter goes out at a predetermined time each week, can I experiment with 100% of my list and just use the results with next week's newsletter?
Yeah, I would say yes. It's not really using the experiment's function. You're just testing one email send against the other. It's kind of like benchmarking yourself and seeing if there's improvements, I guess, in a way, if you're using 100%. But I would probably try to do a 50-50 test, just change something to see if something works.
Just to tack on to that, Carrie, what you're doing is you're just sending out, like in that case, you'd just be sending out a regular campaign and then studying the reporting. It's not really, in that sense, it's not really an experiment. That's why Hank was saying maybe at least one break it up in two or something like that.
Okay, great. All righty, here, let's take a look and see. Ellen would like to know, her question is, I have a small, like 4,000. I typically do experiments by doing actual campaigns to see the results based. If I use experiments instead, are there more results matrix received or same as with a regular campaign?
I can touch on that. So it does actually, so in your reporting of your campaigns, you can already select like however many you want and then click compare, and it shows you all however many at once with, you know, charts and bar graphs to see how you can compare. So what experiments does is it shows you the exact same comparison with a few more nifty pie charts and graphs, all at once. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah, it just basically, when you go into the reporting for your experiment, it shows you all of them at once and how they performed in comparison with each other.
All right, great. Let's see. Amanda has a question. I am from a small community and have under 400 contacts to send my monthly newsletters to. Would it be beneficial to run these experiments?
I could take that one first. I would say at least do some 50-50. I know we recommend having a larger list, but at least doing a 50-50 test, whereas there's no winner. You're just doing two variants to see which one might do better. This way you're not picking two people, and then the remaining, however many hundred you have. Split testing with just the A/B would be fine for that. This way at least you're testing something and trying to offer better quality or better content.
Yeah, exactly. And just to tack onto that, I honestly don't think it would hurt anything at all. Let's say if you had one email design and you wanted to compare it to another email design and you wanted to send it to, 20 people and 20 people to see how they reacted to it. I don't think that hurts at all. Except if, if you had a bigger list, you would obviously get better results. But I still think it's beneficial, even though it's only giving you a small taste of how people react to it. It doesn't hurt anything whatsoever to still test to a smaller amount. Just generally speaking, if you have the contacts to test to, you should. And in your case, it still definitely can be beneficial, to see how a small portion of your already small list reacts. It definitely doesn't hurt, and I think you should give it a try.
Great, good question. All right, Kenna would like to know, is there a minimal number of email addresses you would need for testing?
No, there's no minimum. We just recommend, like, you can test to, like, you can use a list of 10 people and test to that if you want to. So there's no minimum. It's just, as we were talking about, what we recommend before.
Maybe a minimum of 2.
Yeah, all righty. Let's move on here. Sorry, I'm just sifting through all these questions. We have a question here from Shiffy. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Apologies if I didn't. Can I do a test on, say, 20%, then get a report before the rest gets sent, then test on another 20% before the rest go out?
So we build into the there's a few ways to accomplish that. One would be to send out your first experiment, have it. I think the best way to do that would be to create segments ahead of time and just use those segments to make sure that there's no repeat sending. We also have a fail-safe option. If you click the fail-safe, nobody in the past 7 days that was sent anything will be sent a duplicate. So that would be an option for you if you wanted to make sure that there were no duplicates there. It can greatly, because it draws them at random and then checks the fail-safe, so it can reduce the amount of people that were actually sent a test. So you can do it. For that, I would recommend building segments ahead of time to make sure there's no repeats, and then running your different experiments, and then comparing the results in reporting, and then planning out your next campaign accordingly. And we can help with that.
We sure can. That's great. All right. Jude has a question. Can you do a 50-50 experiment? Can you do an experiment to the whole list?
Why, yes, Jude. You would just select Notify Me and send it out manually. Hope that answers your question.
Perfect. All right, we have a question that's slightly off topic from experiments, but still a good question. We want to help everyone out. So Joseph would like to know, how do we add a hyperlink into the email blasts? And then it says, thanks, Bonnie. So.
All right. Yeah, you just, within your actual campaign design itself, You're just going to highlight it, and right above, just like in any word processor, there's the little hyperlink link. You just click it, and then you can alter the text or alter the hyperlink, and we make it very easy. It's just within the actual full editor itself. We'd be happy to show you how to do that too, anytime.
Yeah, perfect, great. All right, we have a follow-up from Shiffy. Do experiments come up in the campaign list or only in a separate tab?
Once the experiment runs its course, you'll find it under the Experiments tab, where we first were when I first showed you the dashboard and then clicked Experiments. It'll be there in that list. Just to touch on another thing, though, let's say you had a campaign that you were creating. Once you click Initiate Experiment, it takes that campaign and transforms it into an experiment. But there's a little option right before. You may have missed it. It just says, check here if you want to leave a copy. So I'll just leave a copy just in case, because it'll take your experiment, transform it into, it'll take your campaign and transform it into an experiment. But yes, then, to answer your question, you will find it in the Experiments tab.
Great. Oh, we have another follow-up. Looks like Shiffy's very inquisitive today. Is there any way to compare different campaigns if they are not part of the same experiment? I haven't noticed any grids that compare more than one campaign.
Let me see. Is there any way to compare different campaigns if they are not part of the same experiment? Well, you can compare different campaigns, but since the actual, I can follow up with you via email in case I'm not answering this correctly, and I apologize. But you have to check the reporting for one experiment at a time, since it already shows you a number of variables. But for regular campaigns, you can select multiple and click compare. And then when you click compare, it sort of looks like how the experiments compare with each other. I hope that answers your question. I'd be happy to follow up you via email, though.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, if we don't get to all the questions, or if there are some complex questions that will take a little bit more detailed information, we will follow up once the webinar is complete, probably within 24 to 48 hours on that, okay? Great, all right, let's take a look and see.
Glad we finished the content pretty quickly. We're getting a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's great though, we love it. Okay, so Shane asked a question. We kind of touched on it earlier, but it's got a little bit of a spin. So what is considered to be best practice for how long an experiment should run for?
Or I could take it this time. It depends, and Carlos alluded to this earlier and said it. It depends on your audience too. In other words, if I know that a majority of my subscribers open within a 24-hour period, or the most of them do, then waiting 24 hours is fine. But if it's something where it takes longer for a majority of people to open, you're going to want to wait a little bit longer, 24 hours, right? Or if you're just in a hurry, at least wait 12 hours for it to bake in, right? Be almost fully cooked, so that you're getting in front of as many people as possible for your test, because you don't want to skew your results by sending it too early. I would say definitely 24 hours. And if you can wait to 48, that's great. But then again, it might be time sensitive, and you need to be cognizant of that. Again, you're going to know your subscribers better than we are. Unless you're just starting out with email marketing, then 24 hours is kind of fine, because you don't really know. But you need to learn what the habits of your subscribers are. Do they wait for your email, or is it happenstance that they just every now and then find it?
Perfect. All right, so we're just going to take a few moments here and see if there's any more questions coming in. We want to make sure that everybody gets their questions in before the webinar ends, and we want to answer as many as we can. And again, we will follow up by email. Let's take a look and see here. I think we've run through most of the ones that have come in so far that don't require a more detailed, lengthy explanation that we're going to follow up with. Let me just double check. I'll give everyone a few more minutes to send any more last minute questions in. Okay, so it looks like the questions have slowed out, and now if your question wasn't answered again, we do have, oh, sorry, just another one came in here. Mary would like to know, I noticed you have different emojis in your example. How do we get those into our subject lines?
Thanks for your question, Mary. Yeah, you may have noticed that we give you some options that are in the drop-down, but the ones that I showed were a little bit more colorful. You can actually just copy and paste them from basically any source on the internet. You can use Emojipedia. You can, just basically copy and paste from an emoji source. If you don't see anything in our dropdown that, that is suitable for your campaign, by all means, just copy and paste. I personally used Emojipedia for that one.
Good question. Emojis are really highly used these days. Great. Okay, so if that is all the questions that have come in at this time, again, the complex ones will be answered separately. I'd like to just take a moment to thank everyone for attending our Campaigner Experiments webinar today. And thank you, of course, to Hank and to Carlos for such an excellent presentation. Just a quick reminder, we will be recording this and we're going to send it out a couple days after the webinar is completed. All questions will be answered again. And other than that, Hank, Carlos, do you have anything else that you want to close out with?
I would just say happy experimenting.
Yes, and thank you very much for your time. And we'll be very happy to follow up via email for any questions we didn't cover in depth or we're not able to get to. And yes, thank you very much for your time, everyone.
All right, well, that wraps things up for today. And thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.